Hello, Loving Without Boundaries community. We are here for another amazing topic for our cherished community here. And if you are new in our community, we want to say welcome. We are glad that you found us. Our tagline is healthy, open relationships and lifestyle freedom, partly meaning sex positivity, because I'm not allowed to use the word sex in a title for the Facebook group on Facebook. So that was a clever way I found to say that. So we are excited that you are here. And my lovely and amazing coach on part of our team, B, we love to give value to all of you by talking about different topics that we think will be of service to you and help you wrap your head around how different ways to move through things that can come up if you are practicing consensual non-monogamy or you're doing your best to live your most authentic life and you're having some struggles along the way. That partly makes you human. It's okay. We've got you, and we are glad that you are here in our community getting support in a safe space. So today's topic is about emotional triggers. We see this all the time with the clients that we work with, of course, even in ourselves, because we're human too, of course. And we're all going to have those moments when we do feel triggered. And I love it, B, if you start us off on this really important topic that I'm glad that you're bringing up.
Thank you, Kiri, for starting this conversation. So, hello, everyone. Again, this topic, emotional triggers, that we are going to talk about today is a very important topic. It's an unavoidable part of being human, getting triggered from time to time. We all have areas in our lives, we all have things in our lives that are important to us, where we feel vulnerable and sensitive. So it is part of the human experience that we are going to get triggered from time to time. And I would like to give one definition of an emotional trigger, which is something that happens either internally inside us, for example, our thinking, something happens interpersonally, or something happens interactively that results in us entering into physiological state. And what can be so incredibly difficult around emotional triggers, like how to deal with them, is that they can range from a really mild sensation like mild discomfort or being tense, we ending up on the end where we really feel flooded with emotions, feel like a runaway train, like completely out of control. So we can have this mild response, or we can incredibly spiral down and really just don't know what's happening with us. And very often we wouldn't think, when we get triggered and we have these really big uncomfortable feelings, for example, a panic attack or feeling really angry, that this might be around safety, that our nervous system try to protect us. But actually, when we enter into these trigger states, that means that our nervous system interprets something that's happening as a danger. So try to moves us into safety with these states. I would also want to highlight that if we get triggered, that can point toward a few things that may need our attention. So behind our triggers and triggering state, there might be something from our past, something unprocessed or unhealed that gets touched upon. There can be also an unresolved conflict going on in our partnerships or any type of relationships that just keeps going on, and pressure keeps building up. It can include that we don't communicate our feelings, for example, or don't advocate for our needs. And when those get touched, even a tiny bit, there can be a huge eruption, like a really big out of proportion response. It's also possible that when we get triggered, that something or someone pushes against our values or our boundaries. That's really possible. There's also another aspect, that if we spot something in someone else, like a behavior, for example, that we don't like, we may need to go into a place, and that can be a helpful place to go, from a place of self-responsibility, to notice and observe if it's possible that we do that type of behavior to ourselves or to others. For example, we might feel that someone else is critical or emotionally unavailable with us, yet we fail to notice that we may show up critical and emotionally unavailable to others as well. There's another aspect Two, for example, we might not be in touch with our own vulnerability. We might not accept our vulnerability. And when we notice it in someone else, something gets triggered in us, and we may not tolerate it in others. Like we may show up in the levels of judgment. For example, you are weak. But in truth, actually, there's something unresolved in us that needs our attention, our compassionate attention here.
Thank you for that. It's really important topic that I'm so glad that you brought up. And before we started, I love this phrase that you shared with me, that if we spot it, we may got it. I love that. I've never heard that before, just in terms of if we are showing up in judgment of other people. A lot of times when we are judging others, I love the concept that that is a tragic expression of our own needs. And a lot of times, whatever we're judging that person for, our need is maybe the opposite of whatever we're judging them for. And this is a really important work that we do with other people. But just to keep walking this out, I love how you just really explained that our emotional triggers can get us into that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode when we do get triggered. Like we feel like that saber-toothed tiger is running after us. Just like that reptilian part of our brain gets triggered. And how this can show up is we may have really big, uncomfortable responses. We may feel baffled and perplexed about why this is happening. And it can also cause us to feel powerless to do anything about it. Like life is happening to us, which is a very disempowering state to be in. And we may not be aware that this trigger can be a problem, or like it's just a reasonable response, like whether we're showing up with road rage, or maybe there's abusive behavior that can start to show up in our relationships. So I love it if you could continue to walk that out a little bit more, B, from your perspective.
Yes, there can be so many aspects to the emotional triggers. This is a really, really big topic, but we really try to bring here the most important points to address, because most often or very often we might not be aware that something is happening to us. Like you pointed out, Kiri, that we just enter into these really big responses, either ourselves or we notice it in our relationships, and we don't really know what's going on and really what to do about this. So we can feel really powerless. How we might respond to triggered states. We can have constructive responses, and we can end up with destructive responses as well. We can really enter into loops because our brain likes to automatize things, and we may not even notice that we end up with a trigger behavior and reward loop. So we get triggered, we act in a certain way. For example, we use distractions, numbing, we intellectualize, we enter denial, like, no, this is not happening to me, or we project our feelings to others, like, you are the one who are feeling this. We may create distance between us and other people, and it's also possible that we suppress emotions either consciously or unconsciously. We may really end up on a personal level just feeling absolutely overwhelmed, out of control, and this sadly can lead, if we left things unattended and unexplored and unresolved, this can really diminish our life experience. We might shrink, we might not go after what we want because we simply feel paralyzed. And add extra pain to our already painful situation. It's also possible that we start beating ourselves up, like something is really wrong with me, I'm overreacting, this shouldn't have happened with me, other people are handling this situation okay, what is wrong with me? Like we can become self-critical, self-judgmental, and self-shaming. So we may just make the situation worse unconsciously by beating ourselves up and possibly not reaching out for help, even to our close support network, our partners, or our family, or maybe professional help, because we really think that we are defective, we are broken, and there's absolutely no way out of this.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And anyone who has worked with me knows I've got this gavel. It's a play gavel. So just remembering that when we bring this gavel out and we start like beating ourselves up, or we start beating our partners up and blaming them, it's a lose-lose situation. Everybody loses, and it's not a healthy or empowered way to live. And so when we think about how our emotional triggers can show up in our relationships, we may get to a place where we're not able to differentiate between what happened in the past, or we might be bringing some of that past hurt and pain into the present moment, and not be able to pick apart what's actually happening right now, instead of like what happened years ago, and learning how to forgive and let go of that. And we also can show up in really damaging and destructive reactive ways, whether we're showing up with anger and being really explosive, or bringing our anxiety into our relationships, which can cause distance with other people, which we may not be meaning to create that emotional distance, but we may be craving connection, but not realize that your reactions are causing this discomfort for everybody, and people may not want to be around you if they don't feel safe in your presence. It also can show up in not having that sense of self-responsibility, like Bea was talking about earlier, and not seeing our own role in what's happening. So that can show up as us blaming our partners, which is giving away our own power, or showing up as those judgments, which again, I was sharing earlier, it was a tragic expression of our own positive, beautiful, and life-affirming needs. It can also show up as making assumptions or interpretations, or writing narratives and stories that are disempowering or holding you back, or not helping your partner to feel safe if they're related to your partner. We also can have unrealistic expectations that maybe we're not even voicing. We're just kind of showing up with those expectations. And sometimes when we have those expectations, we can be creating our own disappointment, and that and getting ourselves on the field of battle with our loved ones, instead of getting on the field of understanding and non-judgment, which is what we help our beautiful clients to do all the time. And it can also just be a way that we're showing up with a sense of a scarcity mindset, a victim mindset, and just fear-based living, where we're attempting to try and have a sense of control, but we're actually maybe self-abandoning, like abandoning your own needs, or showing up in relationships where instead of it being a healthy environment, it can start to become toxic and abusive and dysfunctional. Anything you want to share there, Bea, before we move on to like how to move into better states of being with all of this?
Yes, absolutely. Just to stack on what you shared before, we can also misplace how we are getting our needs met. For example, there's some conflict going on, and we have some suppressed needs and feelings in our partnership. We don't voice that. We live in this, what you mentioned, the scarcity mindset, that my needs don't matter. It doesn't matter what I say. We can't resolve this. And I might end up displacing that particular need in a way that, instead of getting into solution-oriented mode with my partner, I, for example, show up at my workplace and try to get that reassurance through my work, or through trying to get validation from my boss, that can result in this addictive cycle of I become a workaholic and really prioritize my work and neglect my relationship. And with this misplaced trying to get my needs met, I can just make things even worse. So the original conflict doesn't get resolved. Mm-hmm. I'm not communicating at the right place, in the right context, what's going on, but I try to get my needs met somewhere else. But eventually this is not going to resolve anything, because the need is still going to be there, like unspoken. Mm-hmm. And then we enter into all those states that you talk about, Kiri, this partially like blaming, being judgmental or anxious or explosive, or becoming numb or distancing, or when we don't have the ability to differentiate what happened in the past and what is unfolding in the present. We can end up in a place with our partners where it's about reactivity. It's reactivity keeps going on back and forth. And if we let things unresolved inside us, then no matter how how much our partner shows up from their very best self with the very best skills, with the very best intentions, we run the risk that we're going to get continually triggered and triggered and triggered. And that's going to be taxing for a relationship if we don't resolve certain things within ourselves.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all that so beautifully. And one thing I think it's important to point out is if we do have things from the past that maybe we haven't forgiven, whether it's forgiving our partners, because we are human, we are going to make mistakes from time to time, or also maybe we haven't forgiven ourselves for maybe our own mistakes. Like that's another way that we can keep almost re-traumatizing ourselves by not letting some of that go from that place of healing and forgiveness. I just want to read what somebody wrote in the comments here. And if this is resonating with you, please feel free to type in the chat. We are doing our best to serve you to the best of our ability. And we want to hear feedback too on how this is landing for you, if you have experienced this and how this affects you. So someone in the chat, I don't have the name, it won't tell me here, said, I thought that's what I was doing for so long. I truly believed I was the problem and needed to do more of the work, but it turned out that the lying just never stopped. I don't know what to do with that or how to go forward. It is definitely triggering, and I feel like it has stopped me in my tracks. I feel so lost and all the other feels, anger, hurt, disappointment, fear. Thank you so much for vulnerably sharing your experience in the chats. And we see this all the time with people that we work with. So here, what I would like to say is to know that help is out there. You are not alone. Your feelings are normal and valid. And if we are in a place where if a lot of the work that we do with people is helping them understand what their values are, how to set healthy boundaries. And if you do find that your values are not being honored or your boundaries keep getting violated over and over again, well, that might be a time to reach out and raise your hand and ask for some help. If it is starting to feel kind of toxic and dysfunctional in your relationship, or you're not understanding how to get in touch with your values or your boundaries, that's when it might make sense to reach out for help. And somebody also said in the chat, Chelsea, I believe forgiveness means constant commitment to self-care and self-love so that we may forgive and be better for others. That's really beautiful, Chelsea, the way you said that. Yeah, because self-forgiveness, self-empathy, and compassion is a gift that you're giving to yourself. And also forgiving others is a gift that you're giving to yourself. I love the quote that if we hold on to resentment or lack of forgiveness, it's like we're taking poison ourselves, hoping that the other person will die. And that may sound extreme, but it's a great way to get on that place of self-responsibility and self-care, of realizing that forgiveness is a way that we grow and we practice self-care. That doesn't mean that you can't have healthy boundaries. If you need to maybe for your own care, possibly distance yourself from somebody who is not maybe having your best interest at heart, or maybe it's just a time where there's some growth where maybe you do need some extra help. So to move forward here, this isn't all gloom and doom. What's important to know is that when you do have emotional triggers, they can be doorways for healing and for growth. And there, you can raise your hand and ask for help with a mentor or a coach. You can get curious about your triggers. You can see them as messengers giving you valuable information, whether that information is that maybe a boundary has been crossed, or maybe you haven't been clear about what your values were in communicating to your partner, or again, maybe you didn't realize that you were showing up in some of those ways where maybe you weren't expressing yourself in a healthy way, and that naturally may have brought up some defensiveness in the other person when they didn't feel safe communicating with you. And I'll just mention something here and then I'll give the baton to you, B, which is a lot of how we help people with our coaching is to get you into a place of self-responsibility and growth and self-empowerment, to remember the superhero that lives inside of you, to remember your greatness, to empower you to have tools and strategies to be self-reflective and do your own work, handle your own demons, and help to learn how to desensitize and heal some of your own triggers, and then show up in more healthy ways for your relationships. I'd love it if you could just expand on that a little bit more, B, and then we'll start to bring it to a close here.
Yes, absolutely. Kiri, I couldn't agree more that once we start to have a greater awareness, either around what's going on inside us, what ways are we showing up, or just have the awareness of possibly a boundary being violated, maybe even have the vocabulary, because very often we don't even have the vocabulary how to express what's going on inside us. So when we start to have this greater awareness, and get the right tools, for example, how to set healthy boundaries, how to create agreements, how to navigate when we get triggered. So really build up a very, very strong, powerful skill set that may include emotional regulations as well, because emotional regulation, and we talk about emotional triggers, is one of the most important parts in a relationship to manage if we want to sustain relationship health and happiness, because we all get triggered. So conflicts are likely to come up, and with the right skill set, we can navigate that kind of challenge in a destructive way. And what's more, as you said, we can use these opportunities as messengers and doorways to going into the relationship deeper. Like conflict can mean that we can go deeper and we can evolve in the relationship. But sometimes we really can feel lost if we don't know how to compress time in this area and what type of tools to grab. But there's definitely a way out of it. So we can absolutely, even if we feel completely flooded right now and just feel that we're powerless changing what's going on inside us or in our relationship, we can absolutely get to a place with commitment and the right skill set. We can build up a strong baseline, emotional baseline inside us, from where we can venture out into the world, when we can show up from gratitude, appreciation, for example, and you mentioned forgiveness as well. That can be a really important part. So that can really change the game, because instead of showing up from a triggered place, a fear-based place, when we might lose control for brief moments, to show up from conscious choice, we actually can learn how to show up from conscious choice and slow ourselves down, slow our reactions down.
Mm-hmm.
And between our feelings and behavior, we can create a space. And in that space, we can create some magic and show up in very different and constructive ways for ourselves and in our relationships as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's absolutely possible to, and coming from a place of non-judgment. So we always encourage people for self-compassion,
Mm-hmm.
to get really curious, because it is achievable to challenge our own triggers and give new meaning to our own triggers in a very compassionate and self-loving way. We can absolutely get resourceful around our vulnerabilities and navigate the unavoidable challenges of getting triggered in a really constructive and powerful way that can actually land us in relationship involvement and more intimacy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so beautiful, B. Thank you for that. And including like when we are helping work with our clients, this is a whole process that we take you through, learning how to drop that gavel on yourself and on your loved ones, step into a place of empowerment, and give you all the tools that you need, whether it's building your emotional intelligence muscle, whether it's healthy boundary setting and creating agreements that help you all and all the people that are in your relationship or your polycule to feel safe and secure, and help you learn how to communicate in advanced, beautiful ways where you are getting your needs met. So if any of this is resonating with you, if you are realizing that this is work that maybe you need to do as well, if you're looking for less fear and anxiety, more joy and connection and better results in your relationships, meaning the relationships with your loved ones and the relationship with yourself. If that's you, what I invite you to do is to know that we are here for you. And I welcome you to book a call if you'd like to have a conversation about what learning these tools and these strategies and having expert coaches who really get you and understand you on this coloring outside of the lines of heteronormative monogamy path. Like, we understand your struggles, we understand your pain, and we come from a place of deep caring. This is a helping profession, being a coach, and we love to help. So if you are looking for help, feel free to go to this link, lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply. That will take you into my calendar. You can choose a time slot that works for you. There'll be a very brief form for you to fill out that just gives me some context for our conversation. And then we're just going to have an honest and transparent, authentic conversation where I learn what are your struggles. I'll see if I can help you. And if I believe that I can and my team can help you, we can talk about what that would look like, and I'll show you how we can do that. And if we're not a fit, that's okay. I will let you know that, and I will point you in the right direction for you so that you can get a lot of value from that conversation. It's a free call just to see if we are a fit, and then again will point you in the right direction. So if that's you, know that journey all starts with this link, lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply. And I invite you, if you are ready to do this type of beautiful and transformational and life-changing work, we are here for you and we care. Any parting words, B, that you might want to share here?
Yeah, I absolutely love that you pointed out that this can be a transformational work, and actually this can turn out to be a fun work through it. It might not be possible to imagine this when we feel really stuck, but once we get the hang of the transformation, once we get the feel that, oh my God, I actually have so many skills and tools available on my tool belt, that can just feel so incredibly empowering. Like we can absolutely build the most robust and best version of ourselves with the right skill set, with the right help. We can completely compress time. There's absolutely no need to live in pain. And I would like to invite everyone to drop that gavel on yourself that Kiri showed us, and step into a place of curiosity, because when we're curious, we focus on the progress, the way ahead of us. And once we get really curious, we can really become a powerful expert in ourselves, and we may have a lot of fun along the process as well.
Thank you for that, B, and thank you for bringing this important topic here, and for all the beautiful and hard work that you do here, and for being part of our team. We super appreciate you. You are awesome. So with that, we will say bye for now. We'll be here again in a couple of weeks doing another Facebook Live on an important topic that we think will be adding value to you. But for right now, just know that you are not alone. You are in a safe community. We've got you. And if you are looking for more expert help, feel free to book that free initial consultation. And with that, have a great day and a beautiful week, and we will talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.